I am launching a brand new Mentalism masterclass on my membership right here on the channel. There are these staple books in Mentalism, but they don't get as much attention. And one of those books is called Practical Mental Magic by Theodore Anneman. But I understand that not everyone is a huge reader, and a lot of people struggle learning from books. So I am going to break down every single page, every move, every subtlety, every routine on video every single month from this book. Now, if you're someone who likes cards and wants to get into mentalism, or you're just a card worker, or you're a mentalist, experienced or inexperienced, this is the course for you. There are over 200 routines that you'll be learning in this course. I'll be teaching my variations, my handlings, and my key tips, including tips to update these into the 21st century. Now, this membership will be getting a minimum of 2 exclusive videos every single month, and there are already 5 videos up there right now, including one of my favorite effects in this entire book. To get access to these videos, you have to join the second tier of my membership. You're going to learn some incredible effects. What is good, guys? It is Reed and welcome back to another video. Today we got Give Me a Breakdown episode 14, which is going to be breaking down the I Read Her Mind street magic video from Waterloo, Canada. Now, this video is absolutely jam-packed with some incredible information. I think this is from the first street magic shoot I ever did, so you get a ton of awesome insights. And I go through a lot of the stuff that I've learned and what I would improve since then. This is also a masterclass on jazzing in mentalism. You hear a lot about jazzing in card magic, but this is jazzing in mentalism, and I give you a ton of ideas how you can use this for an incredible A-can and several other key tips, and you can see how I use this, and I break down every line that I use while performing. In the last clip of this video, I go over my favorite gimmicked effect and fully break it down. So if you guys enjoy these performance breakdowns, make sure you drop a like, leave me a comment, and if you would like to join my Mentalism membership where you can learn some incredible mentalism, or if you'd like to check out a private lesson with me one-on-one, links are in the description. But without any further ado, let's jump right into the video. Alright guys, so this first effect here is an effect I've actually taught on the channel. I will link it all the way up there. It's called 7H, and it's named after the card that you're gonna force on them. Now, this is a really cool effect. This is actually what I call jazz mentalism. So essentially, the main idea of this effect is a random card is selected. It is put in the spectator's pocket or in their purse without them knowing, and then we create a card together, and it happens to be the card that is selected and placed in the purse. Now, how this is done is by jazzing. You're basically jazzing, and you use a lot of really cool techniques to essentially not only influence your audience, but also get what you say to feel like it's what they said. And you're going to see a brilliant example of that. This is one of my favorite performances of this effect because it was difficult. It didn't go perfectly, right? So as we go through it, I'll break all the steps down, and then if you want to fully learn this effect and all its subtleties, you can check out the tutorial after this video. So let's take a look. I need someone who's very good at keeping a secret and won't cheat.
No.
Who won't cheat?
Christina.
Christina? Okay, so I'm just going to reach in. So that's a key line to open up with, and it's not only with this effect, but it applies for any effect where you need them to follow an instruction importantly. And the reason it's so important here is because we're going to force the 7 of hearts. Now, while that is the reason for the name of the effect, it is also important for parts of the method. So you can imagine if they didn't follow my instruction and if there was a mistake and they accidentally looked at the card I was forcing them, well, then not only would the effect be ruined because we'd have to pick a new card, but now I can't really repeat the effect. I could, but I like doing it with the 7 of hearts for a lot of reasons, and so this is really important that no one sees the 7 of hearts to ruin the effect. So that's why I say, hey, who's really good at keeping a secret? Who can help me out here and follow my instructions well? And all you have to do is ask that question because it puts them on the spot, and now 1 makes them feel like if they don't listen, they'll ruin the effect, which is good to put them in that situation if you want them to listen, and 2, it'll keep them accountable, right, which is key. Here, and I don't want any one of us to know. Let's go with this card. So sometimes I opt to force this card with like a spread force or a riffle force, but I really like the openness and the feel of doing it this way. And all I did is I had the 7 of hearts on top, I cut it to the middle, and I hold the break. Now you can see how casual it looks as I was just thumbing through the cards, and I say, I don't know, maybe I'll take this one. And I'm just spreading off cards, throwing them on the table until I hit my break, and then I just thumb off that card like I don't know, and we're going to pick that one randomly, but of course it is my force card. Now we need to put it in a secret location.
right, Christina. Okay. Is that your little bag in front of you there? Or?
Yes. The black one?
Okay, I want you to put this card. It doesn't matter. Okay. Put this in the black bag, but make sure no one sees it. Not even you. No one sees it. In the black bag.
Put it in the bag.
All right, you're gonna keep that safe. Okay, make sure.
So you see how my instructions were clear and she followed it exactly how I asked because of the fact that I put the pressure on her. And you can see how all of this kind of gets a laugh, right? Like, I need someone to be secret, you're gonna help me out here. Like, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it does get a bit of a laugh, which is always nice.
So I want you to imagine that I have a box of invisible cards.
So now I am going to begin this with a bit of equivoque. So while I said this is jazz mentalism, we are going to use some equivoque. And you could do this effect with fully using equivoque, which is something that I do lots now. This was actually before I developed my equivoque script to verbally force any playing card. And that's what I would opt for now over this effect. I don't perform this in this way a lot anymore because of this verbal equivoque process that is just the absolute fairest thing. Now, to the people who hate equivoque, maybe they'll like this better, but I think you're honestly being naive if you listen to my scripting from my equivoque script, which I will link again all the way up there somewhere, and you can go learn that. But it is the holy grail. It is the perfect card force. It's verbal. It feels like free choice. You can force any card. It's so clean. It's so well thought out. It's 100% surefire, guys. Like, I spam that effect in the sense that I use that scripting to force playing cards all the time. Imagine doing a thought of a can. Where you have a marked deck. They name any number, they shuffle as much as they want, deal down to any number. You just read the marking off that card, and now you equivoque force a playing card, and you just force that playing card and it matches, right? Think about the possibilities when you have the literal ability to force any playing card verbally. You don't need the deck. So that card can already be removed from the deck and you can still force it. And that is why I love that so much. And the people who think, oh, equivoque is obvious, I've been doing this for years. This is not obvious. It's not obvious if you do it right. And this scripting is so well layered, so well hidden. There's no repeats. Everything is logical. You have a logical premise and a logical answer for every situation. Absolutely the bomb. So that's what I use now kind of instead of this. But this is still really unique and something I would recommend you try because the jazz mentalism is very useful. And this effect teaches you a ton about psychology, about influence, and how to kind of change people's perspective through recapping and various subtleties. Especially that tutorial where I kind of talk about all this, I think is really unique, and that helps you now with your other mentalism, particularly when it comes to saving mentalism. So 2 videos that I would recommend you check out, but nonetheless this is an awesome effect.
In these cards there's red cards and there's black cards, and I dump one out. Which color do I dump out?
Red.
Red. So I have the red cards in my hand. I just kind of like...
So you see, we are going to use equivoque for this suit here, and I think it's beneficial to just take advantage of 2 quick little equivoque lines. And again, this part is the same scripting from my equivoque verbal force now, and I think it's it's useful to just knock that suit out really quick. And you can see here we're going to have a perfect hit where I say, I have a deck of cards, and there's 2 colors. There's red cards and there's black cards. I'm going to dump one out. Which one do I dump? Okay, and now she says red, so I say perfect. Now I spread out those red cards, and the 2 keys here is to have a logical response prepared for whatever they respond to. So if she says red, I instantly say, okay, perfect. So I dump out those red cards and I spread them in my hand like this. And if she had said black, I would say, okay, perfect. I dump out those black cards, and now I'm left with the box of red cards. I'm going to hand those to you. Can you take them out and spread them in front of you? So either way, it is so logical, and then the key is to say that quick. Follow up with it instantly. You don't hesitate because they need to feel like that was always the plan, right? And if you think about it logically as you want, it makes sense in both cases. I said we need to dump out a color from the box. If we dump out the reds, the ones I want in this case, it makes sense that we're dumping them out in our hands to use them. If they say the ones I don't want, dump out. You dump something out in the trash because you don't want it, right? It also makes sense. So you dump out the black cards, and then to do an added bonus, I mime throwing them over my shoulder. And that's the second key with this equivoque. Using hand gestures in your equivoque is absolutely, I would say, a necessity, because it speaks so much without having to say anything, without having to say that those you know, lines that aren't so good in equivoque, those corny lines, or the lines that don't make a ton of sense, you just mime it. Like, think about how much better this is. If I say, okay, so we dump out one, which one do we dump out? And you say black, and I say, okay, perfect, so we're gonna get rid of the black cards because we dumped them out, so now we have the red cards, right? It just feels weird. It's like, okay, we're dumping them out to use the red. Like, that's where you get that double negative sort of, we're not using them, like, you know, it's kind of confusing. But if I just say, okay, perfect, we'll dump out the black cards, now I'll hand you the box of red cards, and I just mime throwing them away, everyone understands that, and it sounds so much better, it's way cleaner, and way more logical. So that's how I force the color, and now we're gonna go into the suit force.
Spread them in front of you guys. You see all the hearts and all the diamonds, right? Hell yeah. What I want you to do, start saying hearts and diamonds in your head and keep switching between them, hearts, diamonds.
So first, you know, you see how I instantly say spread out those red cards and I separate them into the hearts and diamonds, right? So again, I'm miming everything, and now I'm gonna have her repeat hearts, diamonds in her head. Just keep going, hearts, diamonds, hearts, diamonds, hearts, diamonds. I'm gonna have someone else call stop, and when they stop, I'm gonna have her stop on the one that's in her head.
Keep doing that, don't stop. Margot, whenever you want, I want you to say stop. And when she says stop, you stop wherever you are, but don't say it out loud, okay? So whenever you want, say stop.
Stop.
If you were to change your mind one more time, what would you be at?
Diamond.
Diamond, so you're at hearts. You want to stick with that one?
So you can see how well that line flies too. So here's now how we force the suit. So the one girl's repeating them in their head, and then I have another girl, I say, you're gonna say stop whenever you want, and when she says stop, stop on whatever you're at, but don't say it out loud. And that line is super key, because if you don't say it, they will blurt it out loud when they stop, and that is important for the method. And this is a great example because I didn't get the hit I want. The first time I got red, which is what I want. This time I want her to say hearts, but she says diamonds. So now that she is stopped on one in her head, it's very clever. I'm gonna say, if you were to change your mind one more time, what would you be at? Okay? And what this does is create a sort of false choice where she can feel one of two ways depending on how I respond to what she says. If I respond in one way, she's going to feel like, oh, I was just giving an example if I were to change my mind one more time. But the one I actually stopped on is obviously the one I thought of. Right? But I was just giving a sort of example. If I respond in a different way, she's going to say, okay, I stopped on one, but like magicians do all the time, they say, you know, are you sure you want to keep that one? Do you want to change your mind one last time? He's going to have me switch one more time, and it's still going to be random because I didn't know where I was going to stop. And now the one I name out loud is the one we're going to go with. So either way, you have your out. Okay, so she says stop, and I say, if you were to change your mind one more time, what would you be at? And she says hearts. I say, okay, perfect. Hearts it is. That was a completely free choice. You could have stopped on any one. In this case, she says diamonds. So I say, if you were to change your mind, what would you be on? She says diamonds. And I say, okay, so you were on hearts in your head. That's a great choice. Let's go with that. Right? And you see how she confirms that, right? I say, oh, so you're on hearts in your head. Of course they're going to say yes to that. Because when I tell her, so you're on hearts in your head, that's a good choice, you want to go with one, she's going to say yes every time. Not necessarily yes to, do you want to go with that? But she's going to say yes to, yes, I had hearts in my head. And I'm just going to kind of breeze over that. And you can see she says yes anyway, and every time I do this, they always say yes. And you don't have to ask, you can just tell, but I like to ask. I say, oh, so you had hearts in your head, that's a good choice, do you want to go with that one? And they'll be saying yes, but they'll be saying yes to, yes, I had hearts in my head. And logically, it makes sense. That's the one they had in their mind. Of course, we're going to go with the one that was in their mind, right? In both cases, it's perfectly logical. What you could say if you don't want to ask is, you're on hearts in your head, that's a good choice, let's go with that one, and then just move on and move into the next thing.
This is crazy. Right now, if we're going off probability, there's only, out of every 13 cards, there's only 3 face cards, right? The queen, jack, and the king. And there's a bunch more number cards, so more likely, based on probability, it might be a number card.
So that's a fun little kind of forcing line that I use. It's something that gets forgotten, which is nice because it's never remembered. It's such a nothing line that's never remembered. So when they're thinking about the effect later, they'll never remember that I limited them to the number cards. I talk about these under the radar lines. And the key to getting a line to fly under the radar and not raise suspicion is to make it make enough sense that someone's brain says information in and it reaches the conclusion point and then information out. And the way that you get them to jump from, you know, the premise to the conclusion and draw that line quickly is to just like keep talking, because their brain's going to be on to the next thing. And as long as it has a resemblance of making sense, especially when you're the magician, so you're the expert. When people listen to experts, they'll listen to whatever the expert says, right? As long as you don't say the sky is green, their brain will not pick that up as something that requires more critical thought, and they will accept the premise to be true. And you can use this psychological idea to basically make anything fly. That's why I have a whole video that you can go check out about justifications, and the main method is you can justify anything you want. And I truly believe anything you can justify, you just need the right line and the right reason. And it doesn't even have to make a lot of sense, because what I'm doing here, it's a beautiful little line where I just say, you know, I obviously want to force them to pick a number card. So I want to kill the picture cards. And again, you could use equivocate here, but this is jazz mentalism. And again, they don't think I know what this card is. So I'm just going off probability, so it makes sense. So I say, look, there are more, you know, number cards in the deck. There's only 3 picture cards. So based off probability, it's more likely a number cards. Let's try to figure out which one it is, right? And that's all I say. And of course, logically, that does make sense. But practically, they're going to be like, well, you have no idea what it is, so that actually means nothing really. But logically, it makes sense, so they're just going to accept it, and now they'll only name number cards, and it works flawlessly. And they'll never remember that line, because it's a under the radar line. I said it quick. It's just, you know, from get to point A to point B. It's just so I can get to point B of them only picking number cards, but they'll never remember that line.
If you were to think of a number card, what would you say?
I swear. I was
If you
not
were to think of a
listening.
number card, what would you say?
2.
2. If you were to think of a number card, what would you say?
4.
And I wanted to pause in the middle of this, but what I'm doing is after you perform a while, you kind of get a sense for who's going to be susceptible to what kind of psychological ploys. And the reason you choose the 7 of hearts is because hearts is by far the most named suit, and even though we're using equivocate, you'll get red a lot more than you'll get black. And then the hearts diamonds thing is random, but I always prefer hearts. But you could do this with the 7 of diamonds, I suppose. But the reason 7 is chosen is obviously, as I'm sure you know, 7 is by far the most commonly named number from 1 to 10. So my goal here is to get a perfect hit. The first person I ask, I want them to say 7. And how do I choose that person? Well, I actually do choose them very carefully. It's kind of a gut feeling thing. But generally, you want to look for the person who is the least heckler type, right? The most like enjoying the moment and just going with the flow, following your instructions. And also the type who, not dumb, I shouldn't say that because I actually know some of these girls, and I know that one who I asked first, and I didn't ask her because she's dumb. It's not to do with that if she ever sees this, but it's the sense of not gonna question it, not gonna think too critically. It doesn't mean they're dumb, it just means, now, it can work great on dumb people, don't get me wrong. It's also the idea of just someone who won't think too critically. They'll just say the first thing that comes to mind. That's why I kind of rush her. And you can see how she got rushed because she panicked and said, no, ask the next person. She didn't even give me a number, right? She couldn't even, you know, name one. So maybe I have to rethink not calling her dumb. No, I'm kidding. That's the goal. That is what I'm striving for, is to just find that person who's the most in the moment. Because when they're in the moment, you'll let your psyche take over and make the decision for you, and the number 7's that decision in a lot of cases. Now, she says no, so what's the method here? Well, we jump to another person. I say, let's say you were to name a number, what would you name? So now, if she names 7, it's like, okay, perfect. So 7, that was a free choice and all that stuff, and boom, we go into the reveal. She doesn't say 7, I instantly, again, it's all about being snappy with your replies to make it feel like that was the plan all along. She says a random number, I say, okay, and what would you say? And she says a random number, and what would you say? And now we're just going until someone says 7. And when someone says 7, I'm going to use various techniques that you'll see in a second to hone in on that person and make them feel like they had some kind of connection and their number is the one that we feel, and we'll go with 7. But this is interesting because, as you'll see, no one says 7. So what do? Let's find out.
5, 2,
8, 10. Does anyone feel really confident that they're guessing here? Like, I'm getting the sense we had a lot of like 5, 4, 8s.
really 4.
So the first strategy I use is essentially I take the information given and I draw a conclusion about what our group consensus is about that information. Now I can say whatever I want, and you can use this line every time because think about it. How many people do I have here? 7. So I got 7 different numbers named because they're not, we already know people aren't going to name the same numbers, right? So right there, there's a very high chance someone's going to say 7. And again, if someone did, I'm just going to hone in on that person. In the same way, you'll see me do that here in a second once I do get someone to eventually say 7. But I got really unlucky. No one said 7. So now I'm going to draw a conclusion from what we said. So all you say is, I'm getting a sense here, you know, we're kind of all over the place. So now, you know, if we're all over the place, we need to come to a consensus. So I, as the leader, as the performer, am going to help us find a consensus. So they're going to listen, right? So I say, I'm getting a sense, you know, we had a lot of I'm getting a sense somewhere mid-level number. We got a lot of 4, 5, 8, you know, kind of numbers. And I just name numbers around 7. I tell them that the consensus is we're somewhere in the middle because we got a lot of middle range numbers, which is true. Someone said 4, someone said 5, someone said 8. But maybe there was more of 1, 9, 3, 10. Like maybe people said numbers that weren't mid-range, but I'm just going to say it is. And no one's really going to remember what was named. No one's going to question that statement. And now that's going to force them somewhere between basically 5 and 8. Because I said 4, 5, 8. So that's going to force them between 4 and 8. And what I do is say every number but 7. And I slowly say them. I don't say I'm feeling 4, 5, 6, 8. I say I'm feeling like maybe you said we had a 4, you said 5, 8, you know, somewhere in that mid-range, you know, maybe around 6, something like that. The only number I don't say is 7. So now someone's gonna say so. Someone's gonna fill in the blank, and you'll hear them. They're gonna start naming some of those mid-range numbers because I say, look, does anyone have a really strong feeling about somewhere, you know, that mid-range? Anyone? And of course, because I said all the other numbers, they're more likely to say 7. But I think here, they don't say 7 right away, but I just say, yeah, like around, like someone says 4 maybe. I say, like, yeah, like around that. Like, does anyone have a strong feeling? And I'm just going to keep going and going until someone says 7, and then I'll narrow in on them.
Somewhere in that mid-range, right? Yeah. So 4, 6... Anyone having a strong sense here? I want someone to feel it.
7.
7? Do you feel strong about that?
So, as you see, I say the same thing, you know, like I was like 4, 6, like somewhere in that mid-range, anyone feel very strong? And a couple of people mumbled numbers, but she said 7, right? She goes 7, and the second I hear that, you see, I turn my attention on her, I see 7, do you feel really strongly about that? And of course they're gonna say yes, because they said it, it's their choice. And then I just say, that's, you know, it's your choice, but you feel strongly with that? And she says yes. I said, that's a great choice, right? I'm hitting her with positive reinforcement because she's not going to disagree if I'm saying good things about her, right?
Yeah. Strong? Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Think about that. You said red.
And now we move past it, we recap, and no one questions any of that whole process because it feels so natural.
You were stopped on hearts. 7, you feel strong about that. So, Chrissy, I didn't go anywhere near that. I want you to just take out the card that's in there.
If it's right.
No way. Oh my gosh. It was so good. It was a group effort.
But she picked it like last second. How did you know it was 7?
I know.
And so as you can see, absolutely amazing reactions from this. They really freaked out. And it's hilarious how the girl at the end says, but she just picked it. She picked it right at the end. Like, that's crazy because she named it. And then she asked her, like, how did you say that? And it's so funny because I basically picked it. They named every number from 1 to 10 and I picked 7, right? You see how the psychology is at play, how what they remember. This is a textbook example. I'm showing you evidence that this stuff works if you listen. Because she was fully convinced that she, you know, named that number, which is what I made it feel like.
To go with 4, and then she was like, 7, I feel it.
Then I even say, look, she said 4, but then she bombarded me with 7. She said she feels 7. So we had to go with 7, right? I say that, but obviously I chose to make it 7 because I already knew it was. So this is straight into a performance of Face Off. I've talked about this effect quite a few times in these performance breakdowns, but this is an illusionist effect. The only effect I perform that uses a gimmick, as long as you don't count a duplicate as a gimmick, because I do use a duplicate, but this is actually like a constructed gimmick. Great effect. The reason I do it is just because it's so incredibly powerful, and the gimmicks are easy and you can make them yourself, so, you know, good value for the product. So I do love Face Off. It's just an impossible object. It's just too impossible. It's too fun to perform and so easy. So I love doing Face Off. Always kills.
And the 6 of spades. There's my marker. Okay. Do you want to sign your name, or anything you want? In fact, nice and big on the Queen of Hearts. So it's unique. Perfect. So now we got these 2 cards here, and then the 6 of spades. Hand the marker to anyone else.
Talked about it before, that discrepant move because of the gimmick. You kind of show 2 cards, right, face up next to each other, Then you put them on top of the deck, they sign one, and then you flip them and they sign the face of the other, which obviously it should be the back, but it's the face. But it's a move that's done in the offbeat and it totally flies and no one ever catches it, right?
And now you sign nice and big. All right, so now I can take both of these cards back to back here, get rid of that. So we have the queen and the 6, watch. Fold it down the center. Just like that, right? So you can see the queen and the 6, and I can get it to rip right down the middle. So we have 2 pieces, the queen and the 6.
I love that tear, you know, it can be done so openly, so beautifully. It's really great.
Hold out your hand for me. So I'm gonna give you 2 pieces, close up. I'm gonna give you 2 pieces, close up.
And you can see how I forcibly close their hand. Same thing with the transpo. You know, a lot of times I'll forcibly take their hand and put it on top. Take control of your effect, guys. Don't wait for it to go wrong, you know what I mean? Take their hands, fold it over the card, make sure everything's good. And again, in this case, it's important to have them close the card.
Turn your hands face down. There we go.
Now, I believe what I do here is a different approach. Normally, I would tell them that I'm putting a piece of each card in their hand, and then they'll fuse together. In this case, I tried a different approach, and I can say it is the last time that I tried this approach, but you got to try things to learn, right? And, you know, part of me wonders if it was just this group who was not all that reactive, but instead I pretended like I gave them the 2 halves of their own card back to each of them. So she had both halves of the queen or whatever, he had both halves of the 6s or whatever the cards were. And then it's going to be a surprise that, oh no, I accidentally gave you the wrong halves, but they still fused together like it was an accident. I don't think they exactly got what I was going for here, so I think it kind of made this routine fall a bit flat, but let's take a look.
Gave one of you the queen and one of you the 6, I think, or something like that. I want you guys to squeeze those cards, just not too hard, don't crush them, but you know, just a little bit of force. Pick your hands up and just touch together. Did you feel anything? Probably not. But if you believe that you felt something, turn your hands over. Who did I give the queen to? Oh, so I give you each a piece of the wrong. Well, I was supposed to fuse the queen back together, but maybe it didn't work so well. Open it. I guess I fused the wrong cards together.
That's cool.
Your signed cards, your signature's still on them.
I do love the guy's reaction there who grabs the card though, kind of like, you know, even though we didn't react, like the wheels are spinning and he's like, hold on, I need to see this for myself, right? Even the guy here, you can see how much he's inspecting the card. There's nothing to find. That's what I love about this effect. All right, guys, that was another fantastic breakdown. I really loved all the insight on jazzing and mentalism. You can really see how you can use this to force numbers, force playing cards in all kinds of different ways. All these little techniques to get the audience to feel like really what you're saying is what they're saying, and that's the key. So watch this video a few times, take some notes, and I really think you guys will come away with some incredibly useful info. I also really like that A-can idea that I talked about. Might have to try that out a few times. So with all that said, guys, if you like these types of videos, as always, drop me a like, drop me a comment. It's free. And if you'd like to check out my mentalism videos where I'm breaking down every effect from practical mental magic, go ahead and join the mentalist tier at the link in the description. For the price of a couple of coffees every month, you'll get access to every practical mental magic video, 2 new videos every month, and some of my best mentalism material that I will be sharing exclusively on there. If you'd like to check me out for a private lesson, link in the description. And with all that said, don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.